Hello everyone and welcome back to another video. It's Ginger here and you are on my art channel, and I am a Scottish artist based in the Highlands, and today I am just messing around with some charcoal. I do a lot of charcoal drawings and sketches in my sketchbooks, and I also do quite a lot of charcoal underpaintings for some of my bigger landscapes. Charcoal is a really versatile material. Most of you will know charcoal is effectively like coal. It's carbonized material, most of the time wood, as in char and coal together, and the charcoal I'm using for this sketch today is my Winsor & Newton willow charcoal. Willow charcoal is one of the most common charcoals you can buy, and probably one of the cheapest charcoals you can buy in the art market. It comes in sticks. You can buy them as thin sticks, medium sticks and extra large sticks, which really aren't wider than a pencil. And the thinner ones, probably a couple of toothpicks together maybe. There's not really that much difference in the sizes realistically, but it can allow you to have a lot of fun and create some interesting shapes, cover large areas depending on how you want to use them, whether you want to use them flat like I have for here, covering the bigger areas of the sky and the ground, or using them tip end so that you can get some quite nice fine lines. And the good thing about willow charcoal is it's very soft, so therefore you are able to blend it down really easily, and it means you can use quite a lot of layers, which is what I'm going to be doing with this. So I will be adding layer after layer after layer to build up these clouds mostly, so that I can create quite a lot of depth in it without having to work really hard. The only thing I would say about willow charcoal is that as a charcoal, it's not a very deep tone. When you lay it down, as you can see here, it's more grey than it is black. Even in the darkest parts I've done, it's still very grey. It's only when I add water later that you'll actually see it become slightly darker, where the water mixes with the charcoal and it brings out the darker particles. I don't know why it does that. There's probably a scientist somewhere that knows. When I really want to use something dark, I use a compressed charcoal like Krita Colour, who do these really gorgeous compressed charcoal sticks, and you will feel them if you've ever used a Conte crayon before, Conte hard pastel before, then you'll know they feel very much like that. Almost gritty when you apply it to your surface, but the depth of black on it is unbelievable. Like, in contrast to the willow charcoal here, you would spot it a mile off. It's really quite different and quite heavily saturated as a black. So for this, I've basically done what I would normally do with a sketch, is mark out my horizon, mark out my perception lines. So specifically, this was a farm track, so that gave me really nice kind of horizon lines coming down to the bottom of the page, and then started blocking in the darker shapes of the clouds and the kind of mid-tone areas for the ground. And now, as you can see, I'm now going back over my first layer of charcoal with more to start deepening some of those colours. I really loved this photo. It's a photo from the free reference Photos for Artists group on Facebook. Thank you very much for that photo. It was absolutely amazing, and it was Kasia Linska who provided that on that group, so definitely thank you for that, Kasia. It is a brilliant photo, and as you can see, we're just bashing on with these clouds. This is an A4 sheet of card, so nothing complicated, literally just putting this straight down on smooth card. I have taped it down just so I can create a white border around it so that I can see the contrast once I've finished. This here is actually a white charcoal pencil. I'm just using it to smooth out and blend some of the edges of the cloud. Some of the deeper cloud colours into the whites of the brighter section of the front cloud, just because the two kind of overblend into each other at that point, and I wanted to create something smooth. if I use my fingers, because I'm using white cardstock, paper cardstock, rather than an actual pastel surface or proper artist treated paper surface, I'll be able to layer a lot more and put a lot more charcoal down. So it's nice to be able to use something like the white charcoal. Now, I know that sounds really weird because charcoal in everybody's heads are black, but these are white charcoal and they are from Montmartre. And they're very good because they're unbelievably transparent. So they're actually... I use them as colourless blenders, basically. So I can blend a darker colour out into a lighter colour without really adding a colour like white. And it's even easier for this because I'm blending it out onto a white paper, or because I've already layered some of the charcoal down, I'm kind of blending it out into the background colour that's already there, which is a really, really pale light grey. So I'm not wanting it to go to white, but I do want to blend it out slightly from the darker and soften that edge, which is what it's really good for. As you can see, I've also got with me a white Carbofello pastel pencil and a light grey one as well, and that is so that I can add some white highlights where I need to. If I go too far, I could use a rubber. I couldn't remember where I put it. I put it in a drawer and now can't find it, and I have no idea where it was. So next best option for me was grabbing my white pastel pencil. Also, with the white pastel pencil, I can sharpen that to a fine point, so I can get a lot more detail with that than I can with a rubber. Fine line erasers, which you can buy as electrical or mechanical, are great. They're basically like a mechanical pencil but with an eraser inside instead of lead, and they are great for those sorts of fine lines. And if you're working really big scale, you can get some really fine looking lines because it's scaling up, but you still can't get as fine a line as a white pastel pencil. The other thing I have used previously in the past is my white Contes. They are also great for creating really fine white lines over the top of charcoal without really getting it muddy, because they're so hard. And that's what you really need, is if you're working over the top of charcoal, you really need to be able to have quite a hard media to be able to go over the top of the softness that's already down. If you are using charcoal onto a sanded surface, then you're probably not going to have the same problem, because you'll have enough tooth left to be able to actually pick up that white and allow it to layer over the top. Because I'm just using basic printer cardstock here, you can't do that. This stuff basically has no tooth whatsoever, and the majority of the texture that you see coming out is actually probably the lumpy bumpiness of my somewhat dirty desk, which is pretty filthy at the moment. I've been doing a lot of work at my desk, so that causes a lot of fun, shall we say, patterning. So you can see here, this is me putting in my darker lines into my piece. I always stop to fiddle with the clouds. I do that constantly. You'll see that all the way through this video. But you can see from this, and it kind of depends on your screen resolution, so I do apologise if you're looking at this and thinking, what is she talking about? But for everyone else that can see it, you will note that it looks like a dark grey and not a black. I could up the contrast of the video to make it look more black if I really wanted to go with that. However, that's not really true to the actual colour of the willow charcoal, which does come across as more of a grey. Now, one thing to note is, you're thinking of working with black and you're looking at grayscale tones like this, is it warm or is it cool? Now, I am using, because I'm using the printer card, that's a very white piece of paper. It's more on the blue side, whereas the willow charcoal's actually got quite a warm tone to it. It's very much, it's got a very pinky warm tone to it, which you don't really see until you start spreading it out, and at that point you actually start to see the kind of pink hue come through. So you've got to really think about how you want to play that off against the cooler tone of your surface, and also what you're trying to achieve. Now, I didn't mind the pink tone in this. This is, after all, just a sketch. It's not like a sellable piece of art. I really like how this turned out in the end, but I probably would have liked to have brought my compressed charcoal in and just darken some of those sections where I really wanted it dark, and also to be able to add some finer dark lines, which I wasn't able to do. I mean, you can see here I'm getting some of the detail in now on the grasses sections on either side of the road, but it's not as fine as what some of the grasses are that I could get when I'm using harder pastels or pastel pencils. One of the good things with charcoal and with doing studies like this is, first of all, they create great thumbnail studies, or just tonal value studies for creating larger paintings. And I may well come back to this and create a pastel painting from this, just a bigger version of it. And doing this, it kind of helps get my mindset into what am I visually looking at. Where is the darkest sections? Where is the lightest sections? Where are the medium sections? How am I keeping the contrast in this image? So I picked this photo out of the ones that, you know, this lady had put several up in this group, and this one drew my attention because it had enough contrast. So I knew that right far in the distance you've got all these dark tree shapes and a barn, which is great. The grass on either side is very kind of middle tonal value. And then you've got this lighter farm track, which gives you really great contrast of light to medium and then to the distance you're dark, which makes your eye travel up and then creates a lot of interest with the contrast between the really darks against the brighter parts of the sky directly above, right in the middle. Well, it's not in the middle, but along that horizon line, which is where you want your eye to go. Then you want your eye to travel up. So you'll note here that I've deliberately made some really nice darker parts to the clouds against the lighter parts of the cloud that's in front. And that's going to bring your eye straight up. So you'll go follow the road, you'll hit the white section of the ground right at the end of the road and the white barn, and then almost immediately your eye will then travel up straight into the sky, and it will follow the diagonal line of the lighter edge of the front cloud going up and to the right top corner. If you looked at this painting from the thumbnail, you probably see that in miniature on the thumbnail, because obviously I've zoomed in there so you can see it better. But it's a really great way of helping people kind of travel through your painting. You want them to go on the same journey you did when you picked your reference photo, or if you're out in the field and you took a photo of something because it was interesting. The reason it was interesting is probably because it has some sort of level of contrast and it has some sort of path through what you're looking at, which actually draws your eye to some sort of focal point, or just travel through the space that you're staring at. In this case, with this photo, it's very clearly marked. Your roadway is literally the roadway. Your path through the painting is literally the path to the barn. It's really simple, and it's why a image like this is really great to use, because it's very obvious where you want people's eyes to travel. And if you're not very good at creating your own compositions from scratch, or if you're out in the field and you're wanting to take photos that you can use for references for creating paintings, this is the sort of thing you need to be looking at, is direction, travel, tonal value, and focal points, things that interest. If it interests you, it's probably going to interest somebody else. So this is me just adding in some really fine lines with the white pastel pencil over the top of my mid-range. I could have made the grass darker, but actually I quite like the fact that it was just a mid-tone value, but slightly less than what my mid probably would have been. and I've kept my roadway very light considering that it's less than that in the actual reference photo. So we're just going over all these bits and just creating little bits of texture and interest. I'm not really going to be adding much more. I just want to make sure that what I wanted to achieve is what I wanted to achieve. So hopefully you guys have enjoyed this. Hopefully you've learned a little bit about my thought process and how I kind of create these sketches and where I go from here. I'm just using a paintbrush here to add some water. I just wanted to reinforce. Now see what I meant earlier when I said about the adding water and it makes it darker. I really don't understand the science behind it, but it does. And it works really well. You've just got to bear in mind that your brush, when it's wet, will pick up loads of charcoal dust, and it will get everywhere, and it will get in your water, and it will float on the surface of the water and not mix with the water, and it will get on everything else you stick in that cup. So just bear that in mind going forward, because I can always forget and find that I've got bits of charcoal everywhere that I shouldn't have. But hopefully, yeah, you guys have found this interesting, really enjoyed it. I've really loved creating this painting from this reference photo. Please feel free to give this video a like and a thumbs up. That's really important because it helps these videos get to other people who want to learn more about sketching and art, and specifically charcoal, pastel, and kind of those sorts of landscapes. Thank you all for joining me today, and hopefully I will see you all soon for another video. Ta-ta for now.